All right, guys and gals and other non-gender specific human beings. I'm going to break down the song Low by Cracker. I tend to pick songs that I like to play, but also that the other lessons out there on the internet aren't quite right. They're all close, but the only way to really play it right is to listen to it really closely on headphones. And I think a lot of other guitar tutorials never take the time. The people never take the time to really listen closely on the headphones to the guitar piece. So they got it close enough. Honestly, I'm not trying to bag on them at all. But I might have a couple sneaky tips for you here to make it sound just slightly more accurate if you want to do such. So the opening riff is played throughout the song. It comes in the intro 4 times, and then it comes in on the second verse of each verse, or the second half of each verse, I should say. And it starts on the G string in the 8th fret. So I play that with my middle finger, and then I'm going to hammer on to the 9th fret on the G string with my ring finger. And while I do that, I'm also going to play the B and the E strings. So I'm going to strum down starting on the G8 and open B and E. Sorry, 8. So it sounds disharmonic, and it's meant to be that way. That's the very first hit on the guitar, is the G8 and open B, open E, all one hit. And then you immediately hammer on after that hit. So it's going to sound like this. So you keep repeating that hammer on in a specific pattern. And I'm going to play it real slow so you can get the pattern down. So the pattern is something like this. Well, not something like this, exactly like this. Now that is the B string in the 8th fret and the E string open. So that is almost the end of that riff's phrase. After you hit this, you're going to come back to that G8 for 2 more hits before going back into the pattern. So the strum I'm doing is, what is the strum I'm doing? So it's down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, down. So that's that riff. That opens with 4 measures. And then before we get to the main strumming pattern and chords of the song, I'm just going to show you the little lick that basically precedes that strumming pattern, although it's a 2-note lick that is held over the first D in that strumming pattern. So after he does that for 4 times, and right before he starts to strum, it's a bend down on the G string from the 8th to the 9th. Whoops, I always start on the 6th instead of 8th. So I'm bending down from 8 to 9. And then I'm going to bend up with the on the G string. On the 10th, I'm bending up to the 12th fret. So you might want to do it really, to make it easier, is bend down with your index finger on G8, and then bend up on the B string with your ring finger from 10 to 12. Try not to hit that E like I did. It's a little tricky. I don't really have it perfectly down. And it's a kind of a slow lick, and it holds that note, that B 10 12 bend is held as he comes in on the first chord of the main strumming pattern, the main chords. Now, there's only 4 chords in the song, and these 4 chords, or at least the bass note of each of those 4 chords, really is playing throughout the entire song. When he's doing actually the chords are being played throughout the whole song as well in the background. But the primary guitar is doing that lick in the beginning, and then it switches to just the chords. And here are the chords. It starts in D, then it goes to, so D major, goes to C major, it goes to E major, and then it finishes on G major. So it's super simple, but it's actually a very unique pattern that I've never really seen, that those 4 chords put together in another song like that. You don't often see the C to E major. Usually C goes to E minor. I'm not sure why, I'm not a music theorist, but typically songs do that pattern. But this one goes from C to E major. It's a little different. Now the pattern of the strumming is another part where some of the other lessons I've watched on this song don't have it quite right. They're close, but there's just a slight twist. It's basically kind of like, I think one guy called it a swing pattern. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but it's some kind of like waltzy, swingy kind of thing. So I'm going to play it for you guys, and I'm going to break down the strumming really, really slowly for you. Basically, it's D, C, E, G. And if you notice, even when I'm not playing or making hits on my guitar, my hand's still moving to the beat. 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4. So the strumming pattern is pretty simple, but it's also not common. So it's down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, sorry. Down, down. It's hard to say the strumming patterns. Down, down, up, down, 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 down. Down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, down, up, down, 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 up, down, down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, down. So you notice there's a place where I'm doing an up, down, and that's right when the chords move. In that up, down, they move on the up. Down, down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down, down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, 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 up, down. Okay, so I hope you got that. That's basically the whole song right there in a nutshell. If you're playing it with another guitar player, the other guitarist can just do the chords, and you can do, or you can do the chords, they can do the lead part, or they can do the chords and you can do the lead part. And it sounds great. If you're playing with a bass player, then I recommend doing the lead part over the bass, and then when the singing comes in, switching to the chords and sticking with that through the singing. You know, except for the intro where I would recommend doing the lead part that I showed you, because that's really how the song starts. You really barely hear the strumming of the chords at all. But if you are playing it by yourself, if it's like a campfire situation, and you're trying to impress some opposite gender people or similar gender or other non-gender specific people that you're attracted to, which I often play it in a band where it's just 3 people, just me, a bass, and a drummer. So I try to embellish the solo part a little bit where I can to sort of fill it in a little bit without having to play the strumming pattern of the chords on the second half of each verse. And so the first half of the verse is just the chords that come in after that neat little. Sometimes I wanna take you down. Sometimes I wanna get you low. Brush your hair back from your eyes. Take you down, let the river flow. Now here comes that solo part again. Sometimes I wanna walk the streets. So what I try to do is play the bass notes on top of that solo. Even though I've got a bass player playing, I just like to add the guitar bass notes. Now, they're pretty basic. It's just D, C, E, and G. However, when you're up here doing this, those notes aren't necessarily the easiest notes to play without hitting a bunch of other strings that you don't want to hit. So actually, this little part of the lesson is going to be really technical and a way for you to really practice muffling strings in ways that you may have never encountered before. So what you want to do is on that very first hit, you want to add the D string. Hear that? So I'm not playing at all. I'm not muffling these strings, the A and the E bass notes, but I'm also not playing them. So I'm just picking from the D string down. So that in itself is something to practice, being able to hold a pattern and just hit those top 4 strings without hitting those bottom 2 strings, the E and the A. Just leave them out of the picture. Don't need to muffle them at this point, but don't touch them with your pick, and you're all good. You see how my hand is just kind of naturally flowing to that? I've got it down from, you know, practice, that I don't have to worry about starting from the bass string E or bass string A. I'm always starting from the D. And that'll come with practice, the feel. So when you start this lick, you start with the open D string, as I mentioned. And right away, after that first, you switch to the C note. And the closest C note is actually going to be played with your thumb on the 8th fret of the E bass string. Because it's basically going from D, or open D, to C. So when this note comes in, what you're going to want to do is you want to muffle the A string with your thumb, so you can hit that C note without hitting the A string, without sounding out the A string. You're going to need to strum across all the strings now, but you don't want to hear the 5th string. You also don't want to hear that D note either. And the way you're going to muffle that is with your middle finger. That's the primary note of that lick. And what I do is I basically place my finger on the G string so that it's also muffling that D string. This is tricky. So you see how I've got that C note as the dominant. I'll start with a D. It doesn't sound perfect. I'm not saying I have it down perfect, but this is how I play it when I play it with my band, and if we ever play it live, whatever, or just when we're practicing. Now you want to hit the E note. This is probably the hardest of the whole shebang. And that E note is open E. So now you're asking yourself, well, how the hell am I going to hit open E and that lick down at the bottom? Technically, it would be easier if you played it with your fingers, picking it. That would be the smart way to do it. But, you know, guitar players aren't always smart. We just like to rock. We don't, you know, if we're dumb, that's cool as long as it sounds good. So what I do is I use my first finger, because it's not being used in that lick, and I just gently lay it across the A and the D strings so they're muffled. Now the other kind of tricky, if that's not tricky enough, the tricky part about laying them down is they end up on the 7th fret, which is where you have natural harmonics on those 2 strings, well, on every string. So you have to be a little careful. So what you want to do is you want to muffle them in such a way that you don't get those harmonics. So you need to kind of press on it just a little bit harder than you would for a harmonic. You hear that? So I'm almost pressing them down to the fret, but not quite. If I pressed them too light, I would get those harmonics in there. And I don't want that. I just want to press it down, basically about 50%, maybe 75% of the way towards the fretboard, and just not quite hit the fretboard. It's quite tricky. You could practice this for quite a while. I have, and I still don't have it perfectly down. And then for the G note, I don't play the bass note G. I just hit that last part, and I tend to add the G10 as well when I do that. And I like to vibrato that especially. I tend to vibrato the whole thing. I may not have shown you that in the beginning. So when you do this lick, going back to this intro lick, you want to emphasize the E note on those second 2 hits. So the G note is the beginning of the lick, the G notes, but the end of that lick, you want to emphasize the B and especially the E. And that's how it sounds on the recording. And you can give a little vibrato to that G string and it makes it sound kind of cool. Because it's starting so with that discord note of the 8th fret on the G. It's just so weird. And it just keeps it weird when you vibrato that G. It keeps it a little bit loose. Kind of reminds me of some Chili Peppers sounds. Anthony, whatever his last name is, they're really good guitar player. So all together, D, B, whoops, and I want to play it with my thumb, reaching across, and I forgot to do it that time, which makes it impossible to play the lick if I reach up and try to play it with one of my other fingers. And then I forgot to muffle the A and the D string there, so it just sounds horrible. So you gotta muffle those strings if you want it to sound good. Sometimes. And there you have it. I'm not going to break down the solo because it's actually 2 guitars doing the solo, so it's a little disjointed, and I could try to show you like the one part, but then you wouldn't know the other part, and I don't really know the other part, and so I basically just do an impromptu solo every single time that I play this song. It always sounds a little different, but I try, when I solo over the song, I try to keep the theme of those open notes going. So for instance, that lick, it's got those 2 open notes, and when you solo, you can start hitting some other notes, but keeping the E open. And I tend to do this a lot, and this isn't how they play it in the song, but I like the way it sounds. When they come into the chorus, if you have a foot pedal and you're switching, you'd want to switch to be clean sound for the verse. But when you come into the chorus, same exact chords, you're going to want to switch to distortion. And you can even play the bar chords. I think it sounds better on bar chords, but I watched them play it on the video. They don't seem to use the bar chords. They stick with the normal chords, but they just have it distorted and heavy. But what I like to do is I like to add a couple licks during the chorus. So I'm going to show them to you right now. I'll be with you, girl, like being, hey, 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 like being stoned. So those are super basic licks. I kind of move those licks around a little bit. I just played that way that time, but you can play with those exact notes however you want to. But the first one is basically just starts on the G string on the G note on the top E string. Then I kind of bend it, then I open E, then B string in the 3rd fret, again open to the G string 2nd fret, G open, E on the D string 2nd fret. So that's one of the licks I like to throw in there just for fun. Then the second one is basically kind of a reverse of that lick, coming from the bass notes, where I start with the E note on the bass E string, step up to the G note, 3rd fret E string, to the open A, and then B on the A string 2nd fret, to open D, back to that D 2nd fret E note. Then back to the D chord. So I'll just play those through one more time for you guys. Like being low. Hey, 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 like being stoned. Be with you, girl, like being low. Hey, 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 like being stoned. All right, have fun with that. I hope it was helpful, and I hope you like this song. And please comment below if you have any questions about it. Don't be afraid to tell me it sucked if you thought that. I love all feedback, one or the other. All right, cheers.